Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about Democrats. After months of nonstop violence in their cities and the poll numbers turning against them, Democrats have now decided that they're against violence. A few days ago, Mayor Ted Wheeler of Portland sent a letter to real Donald Trump declining his recurring offer to aid Portland by sending federal enforcement to the city. The reason this was a recurring offer is because there's been violence in the city pretty much every night for the last 3 months. And a few hours after Mayor Wheeler sent this letter to President Trump declining his offer for help, an Antifa terrorist killed a Trump supporter in Mayor Wheeler's city. This put Mayor Wheeler in a bit of a pickle, so he did exactly what you'd expect a 2-year-old to do. He tried to blame the violence on President Trump. Democrats and 2-year-olds seem to be completely incapable of accepting responsibility for their own actions. Then Mayor Wheeler went on and said that the violence will stop when President Trump leaves office. That sounds an awful lot like a threat from someone who's promoting mob rule. Mayor Wheeler could have the violence stopped anytime he wanted to, but he refuses to do so. It's pretty clear that after 3 months of nightly violence and Mayor Wheeler doing nothing to stop it, he's complicit with the people committing the violence. And then Joe Biden, who's been hiding in his basement for the last 3 months, also weighed in. The deadly violence we saw overnight in Portland is unacceptable. Shooting in the streets of a great American city is unacceptable. I condemn violence of every kind by anyone, whether on the left or the right, and I challenge Donald Trump to do the same. So once again we have another 2-year-old mentality trying to put the blame for left-wing violence on Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been condemning the violence every day for months while Joe Biden was hiding in his basement. Meanwhile, Biden's staff has been paying bail to get rioters out of jail so they can go back out on the streets and do it again. But this was my favorite line from Joe Biden's tweet. Shooting in the streets of a great American city is unacceptable. Well, Democrats must not consider Chicago to be a great American city because they've been allowing about one shooting per hour to go on there for years. And the same story for the Democratic-run city of Baltimore, which has had 215 reported homicides so far this year. The only time when Democrats will talk about or care about shootings in their city is when they can blame them on the police. Another Democratic-run city is Seattle. Donald Trump tweeted on June 12th, Seattle mayor says about the anarchist takeover of her city, it's a summer of love. These liberal Dems don't have a clue. The terrorists burn and pillage our cities, and Democrats think it's just wonderful, even the death. Must end this Seattle takeover now. The Seattle mayor, Jenny Durkan, responded, Seattle is fine. Don't be so afraid of democracy. And then 10 days later on June 22nd, she tweeted, in the past 2 nights, 3 different people have been shot at the CHOP. 2 were injured and 1 has tragically died. Any incidents of gun violence in our city are deeply concerning to me. Once again, Democrats call mob rule democracy. Lara Logan is not happy about the Democrats' empty words. She said, to the mayor and the DA in Portland who said, we do not support violence, after reporting on violence war around the world for more than 35 years, my question, why did you allow violence on your streets every night for so long? Will you stop it now? Democrats say they don't support violence when in fact they've been encouraging it and doing nothing to stop it. Biden's staff has been bailing rioters out of jail, and his vice presidential running mate Kamala Harris says she wants this insanity to continue.
Clear that I know that there are protests still happening in
Yes.
major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I
Right,
had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going
now-
to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
Democrats have been allowing their cities to be destroyed by violence and tyranny, so Joe Biden is trying to blame it on Donald Trump. Biden says, Trump and Pence are running on this. You won't be safe in Joe Biden's America. And what's their proof? The violence you're seeing in Donald Trump's America. So let's look at a 2016 county-level election map to see if Joe Biden is telling the truth. The violence and the shootings seems to be occurring in Democratic-controlled cities, in the blue areas. Democrats have allowed their cities to get out of control and are trying to use it against Donald Trump. And this has been their strategy all along. I was in Washington in January 2017 for President Trump's inauguration. On President Trump's very first day in office, the left sent rioters to Washington, D.C. to disrupt the festivities and to keep people from attending the parade. I wasn't able to get into the parade because leftists blocked the entrance. There were signs posted on lampposts around D.C. saying that this was going to be the strategy moving forward, to disrupt and resist at every possible opportunity. And the following day, 200,000 people showed up in D.C. to continue the disruption. A lot of these people were extremely angry and nasty. I was wearing a red hat which said, "Make America Great Again," and I was verbally assaulted over and over again. I'm certain I would have been physically assaulted, except for the fact that there was a large military and police presence in Washington, D.C. I was not doing anything to taunt these people. I was just minding my own business, taking pictures and wearing a red hat. But the left demands compliance and disruption, and they've been doing it pretty much every single day for the last 4 years. Being a Trump supporter simply wasn't acceptable for these people in this little blue area of Washington, D.C. When I told my Democratic friend in Fort Collins, Colorado about what happened in Washington, she said, "You should have known better than to wear a Trump hat around that crowd." And I responded to her, "That's the same argument which was used in Germany during the 1930s. You should have known better than to walk around with a yarmulke on your head." As an historian, I find the similarities to what's going on in America now to what went on in Germany during the 1930s to be quite disturbing. Democrats want mob rule, and they're completely incapable of taking responsibility for their own actions. They blame their own vile behavior on President Trump, and they've been doing it consistently for the past 4 years. Toto doesn't like it when people are out of control and thinks that they should be put on a leash. You can visit him on the web at realclimatescience.com.